Hello again. It's been a week, and it's finally here. The video that I have been putting in actual literal months of time to get everything ready for, and by months of time I mean mainly grinding in War Thunder. That's basically where most of the time's gone. Everything else, kind of really accessible, not super hard to find. It's just, actually getting around to the point of being able to record this and having the footage. So, first and foremost, you may be looking at the thing on my screen and being like, Cat, what is this? Danny, what are you showing me? What is this tank in front of me? This, in World of Tanks Modern Armor, is called the Monster Jaeger, but it is based on an actual tank. The actual tank project being the Rakatenautomat, or otherwise known as, let me go down through here, the Schützenpanzer Lang, otherwise designated as the HS-30, but this particular variant of the HS-30 is, let me go down here to my notes, this particular variant of the HS-30 is the Type 51-3. aka the Panzer Morser, self-propelled mortar. Or well, there's this one, which is that which, it's got two 81mm rocket launchers, basically. Actually, I don't think it's the mortar version. Let's just, pretend that this one is the one, because it's close enough. Because primarily there is the one with the rockets on it. That's a different one. It's also on the same chassis, by the way. The Rakaten Jagdpanzer is basically on this chassis as well. But anyways, these inconsistencies aside, because there's a lot of notes for this thing, and it's kind of all over the place, especially with these side variants that don't have any images of, because bear in mind, I'm going to go over the history of this real quick. This tank platform was commissioned by West Germany from the Hispano-Suiza company of, you know Hispano-Suiza. that name is very, very familiar if you are a history buff. But this tank project was commissioned by West Germany in the mid-50s. Commissioned by them out of Switzerland, with the powertrain supplied by Rolls-Royce, of course. Due to quite a few issues with this particular project, a little over 2,000 of the chassis were actually produced out of the over 10,000 that were initially commissioned. So its base model designation is HS-30. It was supposed to be a lightly armed IFV, because unlike the American doctrine for personnel carriers, instead of being a battlefield taxi, the HS-30 is more so designed to be a support tank. Initially supplied to the Panzer Grenadiers. I'm going to use the Americanized version because I have been awake for too long. I'm living off coffee right now, and this has been a lot of work, so I'm just really excited to be getting into this. Long story short, let's get into the main bits of the history of it. At the time that this commissioned tank was put into service, it was less expensive than the French alternative that they were considering, But also, after time went on, things started coming out that apparently some money had been put into some pockets somewhere, and long story short, a kind of unreliable platform was put into service in what really should never have happened. So these things, they weren't even in service for very long, because shortly after they were actually implemented and used, they were getting phased out by the much more well put together Martyr platforms. So they worked up until like the early to mid 60s, when they started getting phased out for the Martyrs, as well as, you know, they were also kind of phased out because the US, you know, lent Germany some M41 Walker Bulldogs and M113s. So, you know, the whole reason this thing was made was kind of, you know, pushed out by the contemporaries and its replacement very quickly. So it is what it is. It's an interesting concept. There's some very interesting history. I'm not going to dig super deep into it, but it, like, the political scandal behind it definitely didn't help, but also Hispano-Suiza not being able to make a very reliable platform definitely hurt this thing's production. So, a little over 2,000 were ever made. There were some variants of it. It wasn't super successful. It saw very light adoption, and then just kind of faded into obscurity because it was just replaced by the Martyr, which just did what it did, but better. Anyways, that's not necessarily what this video is about today. Today, I am going to compare the two, because, well, the two versions of this tank. Case in point, the one here in World of Tanks Modern Armor here, which has a Van Helsing-inspired skin. And I wanted to go over the intricacies of this, so bear with me. Bear with me here as I, if it looks like my hand's freaking out here, it's because I'm moving my controller. Plug it in here so that I can actually interact with this, and hopefully War Thunder is not going to be upset with me for plugging in a controller. No. Do not add the preset for that. I gotta pull it up over here on War Thunder, so that I don't have you looking at an airplane. I also figured out how to have War Thunder running at a reasonable thing while I'm recording. So, we have a little bit of that, too. But let me get back over here to this one, because this is the main inspiration for me doing this month's worth of effort for this video. So, the Monster Jaeger here is, for all intents and purposes, a fairly accurate interpretation of the Rakatenautomat. It is the platform that it's supposed to be, which it shares with a few other tanks, as listed in the little bit of history on it. Namely, the Raketenjagdpanzer II here is also on the same chassis. So, if you're curious, yes, there is a tech tree equivalent. It's this. It just has a different weapon platform on top of it. But the main highlights of this are the auto-loading rocket launcher. These two guns which I'll show you in War Thunder how they look like on the inside, which I can sort of show you here. I think. No, I can't really... Okay, there's sort of... I can show you better on War Thunder. But basically, the way that this platform operates is the rockets mounted in the guns in the auto-loading platform are loaded in kind of revolver magazine style. And I realize I just called it a magazine. It's revolver style. It can hold, I believe, 6 rockets in each tube. So basically the way that it works is it slightly rotates every time that you fire one. It'll load the rocket into it, launch it, and then load the next one. There is a... I'm gonna go back here, because you can see it on here too, but I'll show it on War Thunder as well. That whole back is, you can't really see it very well on this model, but there isn't really an end on that. On the actual gun platform, the back end of that is completely open. Why? Because it's rockets. These are not shells. It is not firing shells. It is launching rockets. So, you know, you don't want to obstruct the end there and potentially have the chamber explode. Because, funny rocket propellant does a number with expanding gases, and, you know, you don't want that super confined. But basically, this tank platform was built to operate with a 3-person crew. You have the gunner, you have a commander, and you have a driver. And it's pretty simple, pretty fast. It can also be used to help transport infantry should the need arise. But again, main feature of this is the gun platform, which is also on a funny little Swedish thing, which I will talk about as well once I swap over to War Thunder. I know I'm talking about swapping over to War Thunder a lot, I know. It's just because, like, there's a lot more things that I can dig into. Right now, there's less things I can dig into, but the gun, of course, we have the 2 different types of ammunition here. We have the first type of 81mm rocket, which is a heat round. This is probably your more common round that you'll find on this gun, because, like, heat shells on medium to low caliber arms is more common because, you know, during this period there wasn't a whole lot of reactive armor, and heat is kind of your way to go. There's also the high explosive shells, which on this have 175mm spin, which I will talk about in a moment. And the heat shells, which, as you can see, is primarily what I run on this, because 450mm of penetration is pretty solid. But yeah, overall, I would say, honestly, the Modern Arbor version of this is pretty solid. It's pretty well put together. And now comes the fun part. Comparing. So, allow me to swap the game audio here over to this game, and we will close that. And we're gonna swap over to here. Welcome to War Thunder's Rakatenautomat. Which, as you can see, if I zoom in here a little bit, the barrel is completely see-through. You can see from one end to the other. That is what this is supposed to look like. Because, you know, you're firing rockets, which over here, something that has been recently added to War Thunder is it shows you what each ammunition type does. You have the heat round, which has a little example armor piece here, and then you have the high explosive round, which has a little example armor piece here, and thickness that it can go through, which I think is pretty cool. As you can see here, this one's listed at 330 millimeters of penetration, which pretty accurate. And then we have the HE shell, which has about 32. About 32. Which also kind of makes sense, because it's an 81 millimeter shell, an 81 millimeter rocket. It's not the biggest explosive you're gonna find. But I was implying that there's another vehicle that has the same weapon platform on it, because there is. And that is the USH 405, which has the exact same armament, just on a tiny car. It's very funny, but I'm gonna show you all a little bit of this, and then I'll try to wrap this up, because I do not want to go too long, even though I am very excited. I am not going to load any high explosive, we're just gonna go full heat, because primarily this is what you're gonna do. You're not gonna run high explosive on this. But the way that this works, or the way that this platform functions in this, is you can use one gun or the other. And honestly, it's really effective. Like, if I were to, like, range this, I think it's like... Let's see, what's the range on this? It's like... No, that's definitely not it. It's like... This one's like 1100, so I'm gonna aim right there. Okay, we're a little low. You see, like, it's having no trouble with the T-72 there. But, yeah. It's a fun vehicle in gameplay. In real life, it's kind of tragic. And by kind of tragic, I just mean it was plagued by issues, both mechanical and political. But, yeah, no. Considering this thing was designed up in the early 50s, put into production in the mid 50s, and kind of phased out in the late 60s. It's interesting. Like, the actual gun platform itself is probably the shortest lived compared to the rest of the variants of this tank, because there's not too many of them. And they tried to find a use for it, but it's just... There's only so much you can do, and there were just better alternatives. So, it's a fascinating vehicle. I love it, and it's been a delight putting this together. Albeit, it has taken months of actual time to get to the point where I could show this off. And all things considered, I am probably not doing it as much justice as I could be doing, but, you know, I have been putting this off for so long, and I finally have the ability to do it. And also, War Thunder's behaving for me enough to record, so... Look at how effective that is. Like, it's just genuinely solid. I can definitely take out the this T-72 before I wrap this video up. Oh, no. Too low. I can't tell if that's too low or too high. I have such an awkward way of firing the second gun. Oh, we hit the flap. There we go. There it is. But anyways, that's the Rakatenautomat. A very interesting vehicle in both games. They play, honestly, kind of similarly. It's just, you know, in War Thunder you have a whole lot less room for error. But it's... For the longest time, this thing has been considered kind of annoying for which BR it's in, because a lot of people think that it should be higher BR. Because... Okay, no, it did get moved up. Because when it was initially brought in, it was down here, I think. In between, like, where this is, I think it was down here. But, yeah, no. It's more so where it should be, because this thing can definitely punch well above its own weight. But yeah. This was very fun to make, and I'll have some more stuff for you in the future. I've got some more projects on the docket, as well as, in the future I'll be working on these two, because I'll have a lot of work to get to these. I don't have a timeline for these just yet, but I'll work on those over time. See, there's the other Rakaten. And the other Rakaten. They're right there. But yeah. I hope y'all enjoyed. Let me know what you think. This was months of my actual time devoted to getting footage of these. And I'm happy. I'm happy I got to do this. It's been a while, and I think it was worthwhile to do that, because it was fun to explore the history of this tank and its platform. Even though there's no pictures of this actual vehicle, it's interesting. And yeah, like I said, let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you in the next one. I'll have something else for you next week. Bye-bye.